You are standing in an elevator. The ride will last maybe 12 seconds. No one is speaking. Nothing is happening. There is no music, no emergency, no small dog wearing a sweater. Just you, a mirror, and the slow glowing numbers above the door. And before the elevator reaches the next floor, your hand is already moving toward your phone. Not because you need anything. Not because an urgent message has arrived from the village elders. Just because your brain has detected an unacceptable amount of blankness. That is the strange thing about boredom. It is not pain, exactly. It is not fear. It is not hunger. It is the discomfort of a mind with nowhere satisfying to go. So why does doing nothing feel so bad? Why does an empty room become, after a few minutes, a psychological swamp? Boredom often gets treated like a moral failure, a lazy feeling, a sign that someone lacks discipline, imagination, or a podcast. But boredom is more interesting than that. It is not simply the absence of things to do. It is a signal. More specifically, it is an attention signal. Your brain is saying, this is not rewarding enough, not meaningful enough, not useful enough, or not changing enough. Please redirect the animal. The trouble is, the animal now lives in a world with streaming services, snack cabinets, infinite scrolling, and group chats named after jokes that stopped being funny 3 years ago. So the signal gets loud in very strange places. Boredom begins with a mismatch. You want to be engaged, but the thing in front of you cannot hold you. A meeting drags on. A lecture repeats itself. A line at the pharmacy stops moving with the confidence of a glacier. Your attention keeps trying to attach to something, and nothing quite sticks. This is why boredom feels restless, not peaceful. If you genuinely wanted to rest, doing nothing might feel pleasant. But boredom has a little engine inside it. It pushes. It nags. It says, look somewhere else. Do something else. Change the channel. Change the room. Change your life. Or at least open the refrigerator and stare into it like it contains prophecy. That restlessness makes sense if attention evolved to help living creatures solve problems. For most of human history, the world did not reward endless passive waiting. It rewarded noticing. Where is the food? Where did the tracks go? Why did the birds suddenly go quiet? Who in the group is angry, sick, lying, flirting, or holding a sharp object in an unnecessarily confident way? The mind that kept scanning had an advantage. Noticing novelty mattered because novelty could mean opportunity or danger. A new patch of fruit, a strange footprint, smoke on the horizon, a silence where there used to be insects. Boredom, in that older world, may have helped push attention away from places where the returns had dropped. If this bush has no berries, stop staring at it. If this patch of ground has been checked, check another. If this tool is not working, try a different grip. Exploration is risky, but staying stuck can be risky too. Boredom is one of the feelings that makes stuckness hard to tolerate. This is why boredom is not the opposite of productivity. Sometimes it is the beginning of productivity. It is the mind withdrawing its investment from the current situation and searching for a better one. That search can lead to a useful idea, a better plan, a conversation, a new skill, or the discovery that the drawer full of random cables contains chargers for devices no one has owned since 2011. If this kind of oddly human machinery is your preferred form of people watching, subscribing is a quiet way to encourage more investigations into why our ancient brains behave so strangely in modern rooms. The uncomfortable part is that boredom does not always know what kind of better it wants. It only knows that now is not enough. That is why it can feel vague and irritating. Hunger points toward food. Thirst points toward water. Fear points toward escape. Boredom points toward something else, which is the least helpful kind of direction. It is like a smoke alarm that just says, consider the building. Psychologists often describe boredom as involving both low satisfaction and a desire for engagement. You may have energy, but no target. Or you may have a target, but it feels meaningless. That is why boredom can show up both when you have nothing to do and when you technically have too much to do. You can be bored while exhausted. You can be bored while busy. You can be bored answering emails, attending a training session, filling out forms, or listening to someone explain a dream in which you do appear, but only briefly and not in a flattering role. The body is occupied. The mind is unconvinced. Meaning is a huge part of this. Humans do not just need stimulation. We need stimulation that feels worth our attention. This is why a person can spend 3 hours happily repairing a bicycle, but feel spiritually flattened by a 10-minute online form asking them to prove they are not a robot. The bicycle gives feedback. It has parts, resistance, progress. The form gives drop-down menus and a tiny spinning circle, which may be the modern symbol for despair. When an activity feels pointless, attention rebels. The brain is not only asking, is something happening? It is asking, why should I care? This helps explain why boredom in an empty room can feel so intense. There is no obvious enemy, no obvious task, no social role to perform. Just your own mind, suddenly making eye contact with itself. Many people find that surprisingly uncomfortable. In a well-known experiment, some participants preferred giving themselves a mild electric shock to sitting alone with their thoughts for a short period. That finding is often treated as proof that humans are ridiculous, which is fair. But it also shows something important. A mind deprived of external engagement does not always become calm. Sometimes it becomes itchy. It starts looking for any event at all, even a bad one, because an event gives attention, something to organize around. The phone solves this problem beautifully and terribly. It is a pocket-sized novelty dispenser. Every check offers the possibility of something new. A message, a headline, a number changing, a stranger being wrong, a video of an animal displaying more emotional range than some coworkers. The reward is unpredictable, and unpredictable rewards are especially good at pulling attention back. Not because we are weak in some simple moral sense, but because brains are built to notice possibilities. Maybe this time there is something useful. Maybe this time there is social information. Maybe this time there is a tiny hit of surprise. Ancient scanning has become app refreshing. The old system searched the tree line. The new system searches notifications. Same restless animal, much better graphics. Modern overstimulation makes the problem even stranger. We are surrounded by more novelty than any earlier human could have imagined, yet we still get bored. This seems contradictory until you realize that constant stimulation can train the mind to expect rapid change. If every spare second is filled with bright, fast, personalized content, ordinary reality starts to look underproduced. A quiet street, a slow conversation, a meal without a screen. These are not actually empty experiences. But compared with an endless feed engineered to update, surprise, and flatter your preferences, life can seem to have a terrible user interface. Boredom then becomes not just a response to too little stimulation, but a response to the wrong pace of stimulation. The world is moving at walking speed. Your attention has been browsing at gambling machine speed. This does not mean technology is evil, or that the correct human life involves staring nobly at a wall until wisdom appears. Humans have always sought novelty. We tell stories, play games, gossip, decorate objects, explore, invent, and ask unnecessary questions with enormous confidence. Novelty seeking is part of our intelligence. The problem is when the easiest novelty crowds out the deeper kind. Shallow novelty changes quickly, but asks little from us. Deep novelty may begin slowly. Learning an instrument is boring before it is beautiful. Reading a difficult book can feel boring before it becomes absorbing. A friendship may require repeated, ordinary conversations before it becomes rich. Even creativity often begins with a flat, awkward stretch where nothing impressive is happening. Boredom guards the doorway to many worthwhile things by making the doorway unpleasant. This is why the skill is not to eliminate boredom. It is to interpret it. Sometimes boredom is telling you the current situation really is empty. Leave the dull party. Change the broken routine. Stop pretending the 16th video in a row is bringing you closer to your true self. Sometimes boredom is telling you that you need meaning, challenge, movement, or other people. But sometimes boredom is simply the discomfort that appears before attention settles. If you flee immediately, you never find out what was on the other side. A blank page is boring until the first sentence. A walk is boring until the mind loosens. A quiet room is boring until an idea, a memory, or a feeling finally has enough space to become noticeable. Children often reveal this pattern beautifully. They complain that they are bored with the despair of tiny, unemployed philosophers. Then, after enough whining to satisfy tradition, they build a fort, invent a game, draw something disturbing, or turn a cardboard box into a spaceship with poor safety standards. The boredom was real, but it was also a transition state. The mind had to pass through the empty patch before it began making its own weather. Adults do this too, though usually with more expensive furniture and less glitter. There is also a social side to boredom. Humans are deeply tuned to other minds. A boring conversation is not always boring because nothing is being said. It may be boring because nothing feels alive between the people. No curiosity, no risk, no honest exchange. Just polite sound passing through the air. On the other hand, a conversation about something ordinary can be fascinating if the attention is real. Two people can discuss soup, plumbing, or a neighbor's suspiciously energetic lawn care schedule and somehow become fully engaged. The content matters, but so does shared attention. We are social primates. We do not only seek information, we seek connection around information. That is why boredom can feel lonely, even in a crowded room. It is not just, I need something to do. It can be, I need something here to matter with someone. So when boredom arrives, it may help to treat it less like an enemy and more like an oddly blunt messenger. It is not saying you are useless. It is saying your attention is unemployed. It is not saying the moment has no value. It is saying the value is not obvious yet. It is not saying you need more stimulation immediately. It may be saying you need a better question, a harder task, a real conversation, a walk, a change of scene, or 5 minutes in which you do not rescue yourself with a glowing rectangle. The elevator, then, is not just an elevator. It is a tiny laboratory. 12 seconds of nothing, and the ancient scanner wakes up. It wants movement, novelty, social information, a sign in the grass. Instead, it gets carpeted walls and a certificate of inspection. Of course it reaches for the phone. That is not laziness. That is an old survival system, trapped between floors, trying to turn blankness into a clue. Boredom feels uncomfortable because it was never meant to be a soft pillow. It was meant to be a prod. A restless little signal that says, do not let your attention die here. Look again. Move closer. Go deeper. Or, if absolutely necessary, check whether the refrigerator has changed since 4 minutes ago.